The dawn of civilization. Primitive. Dangerous. Exciting. The handwriting is on the wall. If the human race is ever going to amount to anything, it needs
the most civilized caveman I have ever seen.
Look who's come out of his cave.
Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is James from Cave Dweller Music. I am joined by my co-host Brendan, and today we have Steven Scavuzzo from Clouds Taste Satanic. Steve, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm sorry if I didn't.
You got it better than 99% of most people's.
Okay, great. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to maybe just tell people a little bit about yourself and about Clouds Taste Satanic for anyone who isn't familiar with you and your work?
Sure, absolutely. I play guitar and have been. The band started in 2013, and we've been putting out records ever since. There are 4 people in the band, myself, Brian Baus, who plays guitar, Greg Akampora, who plays drums, and Rob Halstead, who's playing bass. I don't know what, we are an instrumental doom stoner band from Brooklyn, New York. And I guess that's really, that's the short Wikipedia version of what we do at the moment. But our main focus is putting out albums, but we're moving in the direction of playing more live shows and touring. And so we do a little bit of everything.
Nice.
Awesome. And obviously we want to talk about the fact that you just dropped a new album. If anyone hasn't heard it yet, Tales of Demonic Possession just came out recently. Absolutely killer release. Brendan and I are both big fans.
Thank you.
Stellar work.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the staff member on our site who actually reviewed the album, Carlos, he writes as well for a Mexican stoner doom blog called Fuzz Clan. He asked me to pass along that he's a big fan and loves your work.
Nice. Cool. Thank you.
Of course. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the album? What was sort of like the concept behind this one? I know you guys have some pretty deep stuff going on with your music.
Well, first of all, it's a double album. It's when I say double, I usually, end up referring back to, using vinyl vernacular, and there's 4 sides of 4 songs, 20 minutes each, approximately 20 minutes each. Again, It's all instrumental doom and stoner. It's not the first one we've done. We did a double album back in 2017 called The Glitter of Infinite Hell, and I raised it because it, the writing and the crafting of the songs and the recording and everything involved with doing a double album adds a whole nother level of complication, strain, just like a little bit of everything. And it's something we enjoy doing, but compared to, I think, most bands that will put out an album, every once in a while, 40 minutes worth of music. This one, even though we've done it before, was particularly challenging, but very rewarding. It's, I guess, all our albums, formed in some sense out of concept, or have a concept going in. Over the years, they've gotten a little more complicated and a little more in depth, and hopefully a little more interesting. This one was, I hate to fall back on the whole, it was born of the pandemic thing, but we actually started writing a little bit before, but when the pandemic hit, it really kind of cemented what we wanted to do. And it's only relevant in the sense that, it gave us a lot more time, number one, to write, and a lot more time to, use our imaginations about thinking bigger. When you have so much free time to do things like that, your imagination can go a little wild. And to be honest with you, I was thinking that since we had already done a double album, that it might not be a bad idea to do a triple album. And I don't know how many people out there, have that much of a memory of going back into, there aren't that many triple vinyl albums in the world. There wasn't, even in the 70s, it was a bit of a stretch to get something like that. That wasn't a compilation or a live record. And so, but again, we were like, one of the things that inspired us in regard to this music scene was a feeling that bands were doing things a lot more dramatically as far as the kind of music they were putting out and the way they were packaging it. bands like Boris and Sun, and even Pelican as well too. Back in the 2012, a little earlier, we're really taking the genre and pushing it in amazing directions as far as packaging, as far as what they were putting out. There's a Sun Boris collaboration called Alter that's on Southern Lord Records, and it's almost like a 3-record box set. And it's not to everyone's taste, but it's pretty dramatic as far as the packaging goes and the music itself. So there's precedent for things like this. And one of the reasons it inspired us, in the genre. But so, putting all that history together in the time we had with the pandemic, it was, why not create something larger than life? And, reality set in, of course, when we got together and realized, what would be involved in doing a triple album. So it got pared down to a double, but, the ideas were there, and we wanted to go big, and we wanted to, spend a lot of time in the studio and be more creative and throw a lot of stuff in there. And we did, and we achieved our goals. But at the end of the day, you sit back and listen to it and you go, wow, is this a little bit too much? And you just kind of wonder whether or not you pushed it too far. But the record came out. It took a little while to get it out, but when it did come out, people were very positive in their responses. And this record, over more than any of the others, that kind of validation really mattered, because we were genuinely concerned about what people were going to think about what was going on this record. And we were pleased that people were positive about it. And that made us feel it was time well spent.
Oh yeah. I mean, the music itself is just awesome. Like I talk about it all the time, but I'm like in death metal or things like that, like, or sludge metal, like, the 7-minute long song is king. It's like giving you time to be a musician and like have fun and do it. And with you guys, being structured differently and just being so in depth in what you're doing, and immersive sound, and then just like all of a sudden, like, it's like a soundtrack almost, like, to people's lives. Like, I was cooking dinner tonight, and it's like all of a sudden I was like bopping along, and then all of a sudden I was like, boom, hit with like awesome fucking riffs, and like killer kind of solos, and you're just like, what is going on? This is immense,
Thank you.
And with the way you guys have, like, you have that yellow vinyl, you had the blue one, the black and the red splatter, like everything you guys, it's, the presentation is killer.
Well, that stuff is really important to us, obviously the music as well too, but the way you get it, I mean, the physical product, it's not always about vinyl, but the band started in a way with, in some sense with the desire that it's not just the music, it's the way it's presented. And vinyl packaging can be minimalist, it can be over the top, and you can really put the time in. And we were a lot less concerned. We were putting out our own records up until this record, when we signed on with Majestic Mountain. And so, our concern was more like, okay, not about the bottom line, about what, how much we were going to make from each record. It was about what can we do to make this, the most exciting thing for people to get. And, if we break even, we'll be happy. It's not about, making a living. I mean, no one goes into instrumental doom stoner in the first place to become rich. I mean, it's the least path forward to rock stardom, I guarantee you.
Except for maybe like harsh noise artists.
Yeah,
right.
I suppose there's harder roads, but this one seems pretty rocky, I got to tell you.
Yeah.
So, the thought is always like, how can we present this in so that, you're excited by the music, but you're, when you open up the packaging, you're like, also like, wow, someone really put some time and effort into this. And, it's always been worthwhile, when you get kind of reaction from people to like, wow, this, the music's great, but boy, the way it's presented as well too, it looks like there's some thought going on. And to be honest with you, we haven't gotten the vinyl yet. It landed at Majestic about a week ago. and it's making its way to us. And so we've seen pictures, but we've actually haven't held a copy or heard it other than the tests. And so we're as excited as anyone about having it. And you know, that's the proof at that point, is when you crack that thing open and you hold it in your hand. And it is actually the culmination of a couple of years worth of work. Comes down to that one moment when you pull out that record and you go, okay, this is it. You know, this is essentially the end of the line now. And this is what you've been working for. So hopefully by next week we'll have it in hand, but you know, all signs are pointing to positive that it turned out pretty nicely.
That's awesome. So who came up with like your design colors and themes? Was that like a collaborative effort?
We've always tried to, the first couple of records, you know, were a lot of you know, public domain art. So the band kind of like, you know, put it together, you know, just like creating, I think along with the band name, the artwork itself had to, you know, follow a certain path. You know, I always felt like, you know, you know, if someone is holding the record in their hand and you told them what kind of music it is, you go, oh, okay, I get it. You know, the band name, I get the artwork, you know, it all kind of works together. Over time, you know, I think actually really starting with Dawn of the Satanic Age, you know, we started reaching out more to other artists, you know, to help create things. And it's progressed to the point now where if a new record is coming out, we reach out to artists we admire, you know, and people who we feel like are going to add something, whatever it is that they do, to where we're at musically. You know, what's going to work with this with this cover, with this, you know, the music. And Bronca Studios in Spain have been around for a long time. They're pretty their work is iconic, you know, in the genre. And so we've always wanted to work with them, and this was the opportunity. But it wasn't necessarily, you know, and I think one of the reasons we approached them for this record was that, you know, there were times when they could drift off to something that was, you know, maybe a little less cliched stoner than other artists. But everyone we've worked with has kind of worked with our ideas. It's been very much a collaborative effort in the sense that, you know, we give them some direction and idea of where we want it to go, and we bounce back and forth and eventually land on something that, you know, works for both of us. And we feel like this record, you know, definitely for sure.
And awesome. Who actually came up with the band name? Was that a collaborative thing between all of you? Was someone just be like, we should call it this? Or
no, that was all me.
That was all you.
Okay. Jump in there and take credit for that. No, I played in plenty of bands before, and one thing, you know, when you start looking back at the bands you played in, invariably you look at all the things that went right, and then you look at all the things that went wrong. And there's probably a list, literally of 500 things that you could point out with any band that you played in about all the things that worked and all the things that didn't. You know, from musically to the personnel to things like a band name. You know, sometimes you name a band and you play for a couple of years, and the band ends, and you look back at the band name and you're going, what was I thinking? That was a great idea, you know? Yeah. So with this one, although you might be thinking that now, that's why Clouds Taste Satanic.
No, the band name is awesome. I love the band name.
I'm glad you like it. But I set out to like think, okay, this time around, I'm not going to make the same mistakes that I've made before. And it was like, I need to come up with a name that does two things. Number one, when you say the name, you get the idea that it's metal, doom, stoner. It's gotta have an element of evil to it. And that's why there's a satanic element to it. Then the second one was that it had to be something that we were gonna say and write over and over again for years. Right. You know, it's one thing to come up with a name, but to have to live with the name and to live with a name for years, to say it over and over again, to write it and to type it and to explain it, you know, it's got to have some sort of lasting element. So at the time that I came up with it, I was, you know, well, I've always been a big Flaming Lips fan, and you know, the music that we do is really not necessarily, you know, what they do, but I was always a fan of the band, and they have a record from the 90s called Clouds Taste Metallic. I don't know if you're
Ah,
familiar with the record or the
uh-huh.
band, but and the record is great. I love the record. But it was one of those record titles that, whenever I pulled out the record or I thought about it, I always found the title interesting. It never got tiresome to me. And I thought, well, that went on for years. And I was like, okay, well, if I can say this title and think about it and look at it and still be interested in it a few years down the road, maybe it can be the basis for a band name. That's something I hopefully won't get tired of. And theoretically, we could have called the band Clouds Taste Metallic because we're technically a metal band, so it would have worked. But I didn't want people thinking we were a Flaming Lips cover band, so I was like, okay, well, let's throw some Satan in there and see if we can.
I feel like Satan just gives you the access to a whole different level of imagery. So I think that was a smarter choice, definitely, because then you can go down the whole occult rock path type thing. Even if you don't have lyrics, it can have themes in your albums that relate to that stuff.
Well, we're big fans of Satan for sure. I mean, but it's like Harry Potter or any of these other things. It's fantasy imagery that's interesting and entertaining, and for sure we were all about like all the things that would not only it being very metal, but all the things that would come along with that as far as album covers and stuff like that, videos that we've done. But and I think what we were actually even hoping a little bit that there'd be more of this, I don't want to say satanic backlash, but more that it would be more of a name that people would be like, whoa, Satan, scary. But in this day and age, no one is scared by Satan anymore. Apparently, it's nothing to fear anymore.
You think that, but then we had a guest on a little while ago, Richie Randall from Gravehuffer. I'm not sure if you know Gravehuffer.
Oh, I've heard of them. Yeah.
They played a festival. Brendan, do you remember what state it was in? Was it Tennessee? Yeah, it was Metal Devastation Fest, Tennessee, and they played in this small town. And there was petitions from the town trying to shut down the festival for being satanic, and people were threatened to go there and beat up the band members. The police had to be there and stuff, and
they thought a portal of hell was going to open.
Yeah, you should see it was the funniest. They literally got free national press out of it, which is awesome for them.
But these people awesome. That's great.
Yeah, this still exists. Satanic Panic is still apparently alive and well in certain parts of the US, but most people have moved on from that, which you are correct about, luckily.
Those guys are so lucky. Good for them.
I feel like Satanic Panic nowadays would be just a bunch of Satanists with anxiety.
Now it's rappers and pop stars that are getting the Satanic Panic stuff,
Odd World dude, future thing guy.
It's weird how it shifted like that. Like Sam Smith, there's some weird satanic backlash against him, but the other weird coincidence is that all of these stars that are getting the Satanic Panic backlash happen to be gay. So I don't know if it's really about the Satanic Panic side of things. You know what I mean, from the conservative side. But yeah.
I suppose if you're a big pop star, things like that are a little more relevant, and you have to think about it a little bit more. But again, when you're kind of in this genre and you're playing, people have a little more appreciation for your music. You really don't have a lot to lose as far as elements of being too Satany. It's really not
right.
Exactly. Be overly concerned.
More to gain than to lose, really.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Flaming Lips are a band that you love, but you're not a Satanic Lips cover band. So, who would you say sort of are some of your biggest inspirations as a band that kind of inspired your sound?
Well, for sure. I mean, our first record was called "Sleep Beyond the Earth." So, we had "Sleep and Earth" right there in the first title. So, in case anyone was not quite sure, we were basically these two bands for sure. Let's start with there and then work our way around.
Right.
I guess obviously Black Sabbath and going back more historical. And you mentioned Pelican before talking. That band. As far as the two main bands were Pelican and Bong Ripper. As far as really kind of where we're at right now. I don't know what's going on in Chicago that makes they have so many of these awesome bands, but they were two that was like, okay, this is kind of really pointing a way forward for what we were doing, as far as inspiration, not only with music, but with the way they put out their records and the way they conduct themselves. And it was, that type of inspiration. There's we definitely have some roots in post rock as well too. Mogwai and Godspeed You Black Emperor for more cinematic type of music, and we're also, I don't know, with this record, and I think over time we've been moving slightly, away from, standard doom to things maybe a little bit more progressive. So, even some of the bands from like the 70s, like Yes, and Yes specifically for this record. I don't know if you're familiar with a Yes record called Tales of Topographic Oceans, which came out in the 70s. And so that was an inspiration for this record. And there's elements on it that to us, progressive is just like, just adding additional elements to what we already do that people might not expect, either percussion or other instrumentation to for a little more variety. And so I guess those, all those things put together are where we are now. We're a doom stoner band because that's really where, if we go into any record, that's the first thing on our mind is riffs. Riffs rule all. And without any type of, it's what we love. It's what formed the band. It's what we get the most joy out of. So it's going to start there. But, we try and especially with this record to veer down some paths that are a little more unexpected. And one of the goals, number one, is to, keep us entertained and engaged, but also, to give people who are listening, a break. It's a dynamic thing where, you've got riffs, but if you veer off a little and try something else and get back to it later on, it has more of an impact sometimes. I feel that's that way with, and especially it's like a soundtrack to a movie. If you ever listen to a score of a film, it's not always on 10 for the entire film. You've got to have peaks and valleys, and it makes the film more interesting. It makes the music more interesting when you're just listening to it on its own.
Right. I feel like if you're doing instrumental, it gives you much more of I guess a free pass to kind of experiment with and do whatever you want. People are kind of like, well, it's like a long album. There's no vocals. I kind of want something different. So I definitely appreciate that. I mean, I think that's why prog got away with having such long albums in the 70s, as you said. I'm a huge 70s prog fan, so nice. I love like Yes, Floyd, Jethro Tull, all that stuff. But I definitely think the fact that they did experiment so much and their songs kind of go in so many different directions is why it helped keep people's attention for that long.
Yeah, that was the other thing too. When you're talking about inspiration for the record, and I mentioned Yes in that record, and that was also, it kind of dovetails with the whole length of the record too. When the Yes put that record out I think it was 1974, there was somewhat of a critical backlash against basically, arguing against prog in general and saying, oh, it's got too bloated, it's gotten too long. I mean, it was a double album, whoop-de-doo, but I think critics used it as a scapegoat for, trying to get back to more basic rock. And we thought that was kind of humorous, the concept of a double album being somehow like people can't handle that much information, and
oh man, too much rock and roll, man.
It was just, so all those elements came, I guess, as an inspiration, not only musically, but some of the stories surrounding it. And there was a lot of, and the whole pandemic thing and the concept of, what is the pandemic doing for us mentally? And is the whole issue of demonic possession, back in olden times, was that an issue, more of an issue of mental illness or other things that, people didn't have the ability to deal with back then, and because, you go through this pandemic thing and, all of a sudden your life is turned upside down. So you're wondering how that's going to necessarily affect you. So, that was definitely, in addition to having the time to write, one of the themes that was like going on. Are you really possessed by the devil, or maybe you're just having a bad day? And, nowadays you can deal with a pill and some therapy, but, back in the day, that wasn't really an option.
Well, that and the fact that you couldn't even discuss it even until recently, and in some cultures you're still not open to discussion mental health. So,
Sure.
I definitely appreciate your point there.
But I mean, I'm thinking that it was definitely a chance to be also a little more experimental. And again, getting back to not having a vocalist, it's not that we have an issue per se about vocalists in general, but vocalists put such a huge stamp on any recording that you listen to. You put on an album, it could be by any band, and usually it'll start instrumentally with some guitar riffs and things like that. And when the vocals come in, how you feel personally about that vocalist, well, whether it's the sound of their voice, it's their style of singing, it's their volume, it's the lyrics, all these elements that go together to create, whether it's a vocalist that you really enjoy or you're immediately like, I don't like these vocals. And and then all of a sudden everything else about the record gets cast aside because it's like, okay, here's the vocalist. I don't like this vocalist. And this vocalist is going to be on every song that follows. So, in essence, you could be done. And that doesn't mean that you can't, grow to enjoy the vocalist. I'm sure it happens on occasion. And when you get a vocalist who you love and works perfectly with the music and you really dig what he or she is saying, with the lyrics and it all comes together, it can be magical. But it's like a huge monster stomping on Tokyo. It's Godzilla on Tokyo. That's what a vocalist is. And so, what that person does is, not having a vocalist really frees you to be more creative because that's not an issue anymore. The instrumentation, the writing, the arrangements have to be enough to engage you. And if they don't, it falls short.
I have a hypothetical for you quickly. I'm sure you've been asked this before, but like, say you were to do one track with vocals and you could pick any vocalist in the world to work with as Clouds Taste Satanic. Is there anyone on your mind that you think could possibly gel with your sound?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've never been asked that before, and I've never really given it a lot of thought. I will say that with our music, I would, in metal, you've got vocalists who can sing, you've got vocalists who can scream or growl, and you've got vocalists who are basically the guitar player who's going to sing because they didn't go out and get a singer and someone's got to sing.
Right.
So those are your three options really in a metal band. I would have to say that anyone working with us would have to really be able to sing. Not on an operatic level. I really don't think that would work. And I'm not a big fan of the growling, the Cookie Monster thing. It can work a little bit, but I feel like it gets tiresome really quickly. But someone who can sing, but there's got to be a level of sharing the musical spectrum. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. That they're an equal part of all the music that's going on. They can actually sing, but at the same point, they're not overpowering everything that's going on. And I'm really not sure who would fit that. There's some great vocalists out there, no doubt. And I'd have to really, I guess, sit down and think of no one comes to mind specifically offhand.
Oh, that's fair enough. It was an ambush question, so
no, it's actually intriguing. I feel like later on I should like start digging now to we can send an email to somebody. Hey, if you're unhappy with the
F-roll, and that someone can like belt it out, and then they also can like keep it good, keep it chill.
Yeah, I think like to your points of sharing, I think that's what that 70s prog stuff did so well, is that the vocalist wasn't the lead of the band. He was just another member of the band. And the music at that point was really good at sharing that, especially if you look at like a lot of those 10 to 20 minute tracks, maybe 3 to 4 minutes out of some of those as vocals. And I think that worked really well, personally.
Well, Peter Gabriel in Genesis, I mean, amazing voice, but found his place in the musical spectrum of those songs. And even Pink Floyd too. I think a lot of people still gravitate towards Pink Floyd to this day, you know, and that seems to be the one band that all people, including metal people, can agree of having an appreciation for. So I don't know what it is about David Gilmour's voice. I mean, it doesn't come across necessarily as stunning, but it's perfect for Pink Floyd, and it works so well with the music. And he can sing, but not, you know, it's not this insanely operatic voice. So someone like that who just, you know, can fit in to that musical spectrum is the perfect person. And somewhere out there, that perfect person is out there for Clouds Taste Satanic. I haven't met him or her yet, but
right. It's funny that you say that, because I've always thought that about his vocals as well. I've always been like, man, he's just such a great vocalist, but it's not because of his like level of vocal talent. It's just that he makes it work so well in context.
Absolutely. I mean, so, you know, how do you describe his voice? I mean, you don't think of him in the same breath as Ronnie James Dio, but you know, it's perfect for the music. And so you got to find that vocalist that's perfect for the music.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Brendan, I just noticed we're over the halfway mark, so I know you have some fun ones you want to fire off there. I'll let you take a lead there for a minute.
I guess where are we gonna go and find? Where did it go? The Bagel Hole. Is there multiple locations? I've heard about this place. I don't know if you know about it.
You mean in Brooklyn?
Yeah.
I actually have heard of it. I haven't been there though. Is that a place where you basically get the hole, what would have gone into the hole of it? That's what.
Yeah, I think so. They seem like it was like this. A lot of people raved about it.
Yeah, I have not been there specifically. I remember for back years ago we had this. There was an Instagram thing where this bagel place in Williamsburg was doing like this multicolored bagels. And it blew up big time because they were very photogenic. You get the crazy bagel that you could post on your Instagram page, and people would just like, devour it. I actually had one of those, and they tasted awesome as well too. I don't think it was the food coloring that they put in. I think they just did a good job with the bagel. But Brooklyn, it's hard to find a bad bagel. It's hard to find a bad bagel hole, I'm sure, and it's hard to find a bad slice of pizza. So. I mean, I'm sure it's out there, but it's one of those things that, God, if I ate bagels every day, though, man, I'd be like, it's like we have to show some restraint here. Have a salad,
right. And then the Coney Island hot dog,
Nathan's.
All right, I love it. Good stuff.
Have you been to Coney Island?
I went one time as a little pup back in the day. I was mid-90s.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
that was still a little bit dangerous. It's pretty crummy now.
My grandparents were in Jersey, like in Oceanport, so like we would always kind of like go down New York and Brooklyn, all this kind of stuff, like Jersey, New York, hanging out. It was fun stuff.
It seems it's more of a vibe, I guess. It's like a good way to just take the train to the end of the line. You go to Nathan's, get a hot dog or some fries. If it's nice out, if you're into roller coasters, you do the God, what is the name of that stupid roller coaster that's so famous all the time? Anyway, the old rickety wooden one that God, I mean, I can't even. I'm failing my
not
my
the Cyclone.
The Cyclone. No, yeah, right. It's the other one. People are gonna kill me for this, not knowing the. I know the Wonder Wheel is the big Ferris wheel that you go on. But you kind of, if you're into roller coasters, you ride the roller coaster. You kind of walk around. They got there's remnants of like some freak shows, and there's games and things like that. And it wears off pretty quickly. But for a couple of hours and on an afternoon, and you could even actually theoretically even go swimming. It's not that bad, but. Yeah, it's just another destination that may be a little less touristy. New York is a city in general. It's just been overrun with tourism. It's just like you go into Lower Manhattan and there's just tourists are everywhere. And I mean, it's good for the city. I guess it brings money in. And So, good for them. If I'm going to work or something like that, I'm seeing people who have got nothing better to do than visit the stock exchange or whatever it is that they want to do on their vacation, more power to them, and enjoy your time off. But, there's things about Brooklyn that are, it's just a little less touristy. It's a little, we think it's a little more interesting. And,
right.
I grew up in Long Island, and I was like, I can't wait to get off of Long Island. So New York City was the first stop.
Just to offer an outsider's perspective on New York, because I obviously am not American. The thing that sort of makes it so special as an international tourist is that you grow up your whole life seeing locations in all the movies and TV shows you watch. So for me, New York was the place, like everywhere you go is recognizable. You're like, oh man, I've seen this. And even if it's like a mundane thing, it's just you spent your whole life seeing it in movies and TV. So it's like it's that whole extra layer, I guess, as a tourist, that makes it so special, of just everything being iconic, I guess.
Well, that's the way I always feel about LA. If I go to California, I'm like, I can pronounce, names of streets that that I would have trouble normally pronouncing, like something like La Cienega. Mm-hmm. I know that I've heard that name 1,000 times on TV shows and in movies. And so I can recognize all the places, and I can pronounce the names that would normally be unpronounceable to me. Because it just stays with you, and you're just like, it's like, you're raised on that stuff. And it just, it's a great feeling to like try and actually, experience it when you've spent most of your life just seeing it on film.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. LA was the same for me as well, because I live in San Diego. So I'm like an hour from, 2 hours from LA now. But when I first started going to LA, I was just like in awe of like so many famous locations I've always seen my whole life.
I love it. It's, I have enough friends who are like, mourn like, the loss of some of the grittiness, of the city. And I don't know, it's always that thing, where you look back and your memory of things is a little hazy. There were elements that were super cool when New York was a little less expensive and cleaned up and Disney-like, but at the same time too, you can walk around pretty much anywhere and feel safe. So there's that trade-off. So that's always nice.
Right.
But Brooklyn's cool. I mean, I wouldn't live anywhere else. I mean, there's a lot of places I want to visit in the world, but I've never gotten tired of living in Brooklyn.
That's cool. Yeah, I live like a couple hours away. I always wanted to come down and day trip, and there's always like a shit ton of freaking shows at like St. Vitus and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I want to go, but I don't want to drive back home, and then I got to freaking find a place to stay, and like that's a pain in the ass, so then it turns into a big ordeal every time I want to go to a show. And I'm telling you, there's like shows all the fucking time around there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's you need friends in different places that you can bum up for a night. That's the key. You get to be more outgoing and friendly. Nothing I can do, but other people can certainly do
that. Right. Playing live, you guys have some shows coming up?
We have we agreed to do there's, I guess, out in Long Island. Speaking of Long Island, is I guess they're doing a Doom festival at the end of April. We've actually never played in Long Island, even though it's right next door. So we have agreed to play that. That's at the end of April. We're going to Europe at the end of May, beginning of June for a week of shows. Nice. We've got a couple of festivals that we're playing at in Denmark and Germany, and we're going to add a couple of shows in Norway and Sweden. It's only going to be a week or so, but we're really looking forward to that. And we're playing at Desert Fest, New York in September. Mm-hmm. And we're also, I think there's some sort of festival in Massachusetts that we're playing at the end of August at a beer garden. And I think I'm looking forward to that most of. I was like, a brewery? Are you? All they had to say was it is a festival at a brewery, and I'm like, I'm in. I'm done. I don't care where it is or how we gonna get there, but we're going.
Do you know where in Mass?
I do. I should it's north of it's north of Boston. Something like Big Bone or Bone something. Bone. Now that's the thing. We can't,
I'm like,
we can't end this conversation without me to come up with the name of this beer place and also the name of that stupid fucking roller coaster and well too. But absolutely. Oh, here we go. Bone Up Brewing. That all sound familiar?
Nah.
Bone Up Brewing. Where's Bone Up Brewing? What town? Everett, Massachusetts.
Okay. That's probably about it's like probably an hour and a half drive for me.
Really? Are Greg and drummer Greg and Rob bass grew up in Massachusetts, and
Nice.
I can't remember what town it was specifically. I thought it was again north of Boston, but I developed a real big interest in marshmallow fluff. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And apparently it's made like not too far from where we grew up. So that's my, I've been to Boston too, but I'm like, boy, I really love to see the marshmallow fluff factory. To me, that would be like really exciting. So I'm thinking of hitting that along with the trip to the brewery. So we're really going to make it a Massachusetts experience.
Hell
You
yeah.
gotta line up a gig at the Fluff Factory.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I love me some marshmallow fluff. Perfect food. Not very nutritional, but man, it's good.
I mean,
So,
it would be
wait,
kind of perfect. There's your clouds right there.
Oh yeah, that's right. See?
There you go. It's
That's
meant
going
to be.
everything. It's the perfect metaphor for.
You can call the
Yeah.
show like Clouds Taste Like Marshmallow.
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
god, we got to use that somehow.
Yeah, you got to make your own clouds of fluffy marshmallow.
Yeah, I can't tell. You tell old people, they're like, really? And yeah, it's like, yeah,
They're
I
like-
eat other foods too. It's not like I'm just living my life
Satanic
on fluff.
marshmallows.
But so that we're looking forward to that show as well too. I mean, again,
Nice.
it's a brewery. It should be fun. So I guess the challenge is not to drink too much before you play. It's
Right.
finding that right sweet spot of enough, but not too much.
Brendan
right.
actually works at a brewery in
They do.
his town.
Oh, nice. Where?
Connecticut Valley Brewing.
Oh, okay. I assume it's in Connecticut.
Yep.
Nice. What do you do
Yeah.
there?
I do production management.
Oh,
So
great.
I make sure everybody's got their things in their stuffs and all that fun stuff.
Mhm.
It's
Who
fun.
gets to name the
Fun.
beers? That must is it the brewmaster that does that?
So there's a little bit of that, and then brewmaster, and then the owners. It's a husband and wife, and they'll kind of like come up with stuff and whatnot. Like they made a brown ale, and they ended up calling it Soul of Reason, and they named it after one of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so our brewery's it's a basically like an aerospace themed brewery. 'Cause the owners are pilots, and so
Oh, wow.
retired pilots. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. We might have beers in your area, and then we sell beers out to Sweden. So
Oh,
when you're
nice.
out there, you can try and find our stuff.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to be in Stockholm and Gothenburg, so we'll keep an eye out. I guess
Yeah.
your motto, don't drink and fly.
Right.
What's weird is there seems to be the brewery metal thing. I'm not really sure where it came from, but a lot of breweries seem to be really into metal. I know this thing. There's a bunch of them down in Maryland and
Yeah.
Jersey too that are putting on these metal shows, and I'm like, when did this happen? Where did the connection of beer and metal come from? I mean, I'm just curious. I have
Probably
no
just
idea.
the owners like the music. Maybe the brewer likes the music. I don't know.
Most metal fans I know seem to enjoy quite a bit of beer as well. Just
Well,
happen
that's
to
true.
be that
I
way.
want to encourage things like that, cross pollination of beer and
With all
and
this Satanism with no drinking.
The other
I
trend
want to
I've
get our
noticed is
picture
like,
on the side of a can. That would be cool. That would be the retirement moment if we can get our band name on a beer can. I think there's nothing really more to do after that. It's really good.
Oh, that'd be fun. I'll try and get it brewed for you.
Oh man,
That would be pretty neat.
yeah,
Yeah,
love that. Love that.
that
the
would be pretty
other
cool.
pair up I've seen the big trend of pairing up food and metal is hot sauces. So many metal
Yeah.
bands now have their own hot sauce.
I guess that's logical.
We got Clouds Taste Like Beer.
That never gets old. Never ever.
Oh, Brendan,
Never ever.
you gotta actually better name is Hops Taste Satanic.
Yeah.
Mm.
Ooh, Clouds Taste Satanic. Yeah. They make like a cloudy IPA.
Yeah, there you go.
See if
There
you
you
can
go.
sell that to the to the brewmasters and see if they're
Dub.
willing to go with a clouds themed beer.
Yep. They'll be like, pay for the stickers, pay for all the grains. We'll do it.
Oh,
We'll figure that out.
that's
That'd be a
funny.
lot of fun.
That's cool.
Brendan, do you have any other ones? Because we're kind of coming up on time a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask if playing abroad, what was your favorite city? Have you been out there yet before? Or
We've never been out of the country before, so this is our first trip to Europe, and
Nice.
yeah, first trip out of the country. So I mean, we've been to Texas. That's like another.
Yeah, depends where you're going. Yeah,
It's like another country, but we actually really enjoyed it. We only were there for a couple of days in Austin and Houston, and what's the other? San Antonio. San Antonio turned out to be the best. I was like, well, I knew nothing about San Antonio other than the name, and I was like, oh, that's a great city.
nice.
So, you're never quite sure what to expect. That's why, it's like we're flying into Berlin, and I mean, we've been to Europe before, but not as a band, and
Yeah, okay,
so
yeah,
if you're not sure what to expect, which show is going to work out, sometimes you've got big expectations about festivals and they fizzle, and then other times, you end up at a dive bar and you're like, oh my God, this is going to suck, and it turns out to be an amazing show. So
yeah,
there's no rhyme or reason other than to what makes a great show or a great city as far as for playing for it. So the only way you find out is to actually do the show and decide. We've had great shows at St. Vitus. We've had, mediocre shows at St. Vitus too. It's same venue, same place. But some nights, the bands you're playing with, the people that show up make all the difference. And you only find out when I actually play them.
Right. Your music video for the Seer, who made that for you guys?
That's the one. That's the animated one, right? With the things coming out of there. We reached out to the artist who made that video and wanted to use it with our music, and he agreed and thought it was a good combination. That's a couple of years ago. I can't remember all the details of how it transpired, but really felt like that portion of the song really worked, and I think that video is super cool.
It is.
It just like really works well with that, and it kind of changed the pattern a little bit of us. There was some assembly involved, but it was moving a little bit more away from the random horror movie clip thing, and
right.
We're doing that for years. We've actually got two people in the band who are, well, Rob specifically is a somewhat accomplished video person, not with music videos per se, but so he's added some flavor to some of the stuff that we've done. But I've always been. Videos are weird. A lot of them are. The whole here's a picture. The band in their rehearsal space, or we're making a space that's really cool. The band plays. They along to the song. It's interesting to see the band. It's kind of interesting to see the vibe, but it wears thin really quick. So we've always kind of been trying to throw in some other elements to keep people interested. I mean, I don't even know who watches music videos anymore, to be honest with you, unless it's just super compelling. But I enjoy the process of having them and getting them out there, as a way of kind of highlighting the music a little bit. I think when it works really well with the music. And we'd like to do more stuff like that. The Greg, the drummer, came up with the first video, which was a old animated movie from the 70s. And the latest one was, God, I don't even know. That came from Rob too, as far as a mashup of different elements. I don't know.
I think cool, playing the background at some venues or something,
Oh, we love that, visually. We're trying to do a lot of that stuff for live shows. And we had a lot of lights and things going on. We've kind of reduced it just to some videos in the background, but I think those work.
Yeah. Right on.
What's the one question you wanted to ask, but you're holding back? I sense your hesitation.
Oh, geez. Oh, I know James has got one.
Come on.
Mine's going to be
Yeah.
the closing question, so I'll hold that till Brendan's done.
There
But,
we go.
Oh, we got the city covered. Well, what cover songs started to get you guys inspired to do Cloud Covered? Like,
Oh, right. Oh, good question. Wow. I think the initial idea was that, I think I had voiced it, was that I wanted to do a song for song cover of a Bachman Turner Overdrive record called Not Fragile.
Yeah.
It has, that's one of the songs that we ended up doing off that record is on Cloud Covered. But it was getting four people to agree on some stuff can be a real pain in the ass. And to get four people to agree on which cover songs they like, at first we were like, holy crap, this is going to be, easy. And then it turned out to be, tough, because getting four people to agree on four songs that they like, much less want to actually learn and play and put out, is a task and a half. But we kind of just divided it up into everyone got a couple of choices, and really had, with the weird ones, really had to convince the rest of the band their worthiness. I know Greg came in with that Chicago song. Was it If You Leave Me Now? I know we changed it to If You Do Me Now.
Yeah.
But that song was, when we first heard it, was like, what are you? How high are you that you think that we're going to make this song? This is like the cheesiest of late 70s, early 80s Chicago. And I like Chicago. And so they got some pretty rocking tunes. And I was like, are you sure this is the one you want to do? Of all the Chicago songs, this is the one you want to do? And it actually, he's like, I got a vision, man. I got a vision. This is going to be awesome. And it actually turned out to be pretty good. We kind of worked pretty well. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of all over the map. And weirdly enough, it turned out to be very successful, in the sense that, I think, because it came from a lot of different places. There is a Flaming Lips cover on there, but there's a lot of other bands, Pink Floyd and Nirvana, just a little bit of everywhere. I want to do another one, but now we're, oddly enough, another Greg idea is Christmas music. He's like, why don't we do a couple of Christmas songs for this year? And
please do.
So we're actually considering
Clouds Taste Santa.
Don't laugh. We've been we've been knocking around ideas. If you got any, let us know. There's no bad ideas. We're just spitballing at this point. But I actually, or was it Satan Tastes Christmas? Santa Tastes Satanic. Yeah, we went back and forth. We still haven't landed on anything yet. But after we're done with this tour, I think before we start working on the next record, I think we might, try and record a couple of Christmas tunes just to see how it goes. I suggested doing the entire Charlie Brown Christmas album, back to front. But again, doing a whole album completely can be a little intimidating at first. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an experiment. If it works, we'll put them out. If it doesn't work, then it ends.
Yeah, it'd be some fun practice nights,
I think so. I mean, who knows? Until you actually start working on a song and you try and make it your own, what it's going to sound like. I'd prefer to avoid some of the cheesier tunes, but there's some dark Christmas songs out there in the world. Weirdly enough, there's a dark side to Christmas. So maybe it's just waiting to be picked.
Buy some Krampus stuff.
Yeah.
See, there's evil there. So that's something we, we're happy with the way the cloud cover thing. We just didn't want to, put out another one right away and, be known as the covers band. So we wanted to put out a couple of other records out. But I'd love to do another one at some point. It was kind of a fun project, and there's a lot of tunes out there that are worthy of some heaviness, and there's definitely some songs out there that are great tunes, and sometimes the lyrics and the words are the song can benefit by having less words, let's put it that way. So
it's funny. I'm good to go, James.
Awesome. I just got 3 questions left for you then. The first one is, what are some local bands in your area that people should be checking out that they may not have heard of?
There's a band that we played with once at St. Vitus called Sonic Taboo. They're a 3-piece. I think they're also based in Brooklyn. I don't know if you know, there's a Weedian put out a new compilation of New York bands. Got it like a week or two ago. And
Oh, okay.
he's been done a bunch of those things from around the world. You know, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And so the New York one just came out. I think you can find them on Bandcamp, and I think there's a ton of music. It's like literally 20 or 30 bands. And so you can kind of get a sampling of it. I think they're a good three-piece. They're, you know, pretty energetic and solid. I don't know really how to describe them other than you may not have heard of them, but I think they're pretty good. A lot of the other bands, you know, like Geezer, have been around for years, and they're friends of ours.
Yeah.
And they're
King
awesome.
Buffalo is good.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You know, those, you know, but as far as bands you may not have heard of, I would throw Sonic Taboo in there. I think they're on Interstellar Overdrive Records, and they're nice guys, and they create a noise, so I would check them out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And this is the ambush question I was holding off on, but
Go for it.
okay. If you were stranded on a desert island with a solar-powered Discman and 3 CDs, what would they be?
Oh man. Okay. Well, let's see. Off the top of my head, I would probably have to say Exile on Main Street, Rolling Stones, Husker Du, Zen Arcade, and I guess I'm gonna have to go Sleep Dope Smoker.
Okay. Awesome. Great selection. A good variety there too.
Ask me in 5 minutes, I'll give you 3 different ones, but those are the off the top of my head right now.
That's exactly how it always is. That's the point, because we just want to see what comes to mind with people with that question. So for me personally, that's I ask myself that question all the time, and it changes, definitely changes.
Those 3 records, yeah. The guy who produced Zen Arcade just died, Spot. And I was a huge Husker fan, and weirdly enough, yeah, that guy just died. And Exile on Main Street, I never get tired of listening to that record. And what was the other one? Dope Smoker too. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that record straight though.
Yeah. And then the last question is a super simple one, but if people want to follow you and listen to your music, what are the best places to do that?
We always send them to Bandcamp first, because you can kind of sample stuff and check it out, you know, before buying. We're on Spotify. I'm not a big Spotify person. We're on Spotify, but and I guess you could sample us there too if that's your preference. Bandcamp, I think, gives you a more complete picture of the records we've put out, in what order, you know, so you can kind of like, you know, get the whole catalog available in kind of one quick area. YouTube, we've got some videos, you know, I mean, you kind of get the idea, and you can find our records too on YouTube as well too, the entire albums, you know, people put them out on their channels. So you can, you know, if you're more of a YouTube person, you can find full albums and listen to them to your heart's content for free. And you know, Facebook, we actually, weirdly enough, has a lot of information. I know people gravitate towards Instagram, and I love Instagram, but it seems like that's more picture oriented. But you can get a lot more information about what's going on with the band, and links as well too on our Facebook page. Facebook is still a thing, shockingly. Years after they declared it dead, it's still not dead.
Yeah, I actually work in social media marketing, and I can tell you that all of those reports of Facebook dying, they're not true. It's still showing growth every year. It may not be popular because of the stupid decisions they make with algorithms and advertising and all that stuff, but it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. Weirdly, it's, you know, it's set up easier from a band point of view to share things like, you know, album reviews, you know, to get to other links for things, you know, that you're on. It's you know, and visually, you know, it is a lot easier than Instagram for people. Twitter, I've never been we're on Twitter, but I've never been a big fan of it. TikTok, we've been on, but you know, unless you're a person who really can create content, I'm baffled by that one yet still. But
yeah, for me personally, I actually, like, for our website, just kind of discovered how amazing like Tumblr is.
Right.
Like the way that they've set up Tumblr now with actual functionality, the posts are incredible. Like you can do like a heading, then you can do a picture, then you can embed a a player, like as many players as you want. So you can like embed any link. So you can do like a YouTube video, you can do the Spotify player, you can do a Bandcamp player, like anything that you want, and then you can also do like a link, and it lets you stack all the embeds one above the other. So like if you're like a band and you're putting out an album or something or promoting your album, you can do like links to all the different ways people can listen to it in one post, which is awesome. You can't do that anywhere else.
I have not heard that. I'm gonna have to check that out. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for like new platforms to like, but yeah, I mean, Tumblr's been around for years, but I don't think it even occurred to me that should maybe be a destination place.
Same with me for our site. So I only set us up on there like I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I'm like, man, I should have been doing this for so long ago. I had no idea it had like this much functionality. It's really. I wish other sites did that.
All right. As soon as we're done, I'm heading to Tumblr just to check out some. I'm giving up MySpace. MySpace is done. I'm out of there. I'm moving on to Tumblr.
The other thing I will say about it is I don't like the way that their feed operates. So it's like it's kind of like actually like scrolling through content's kind of weird. But to actually like post stuff, it's the best that I've seen so far.
Yeah. I'll check it out. When in this day and age, if you're not active on social media, I can't even imagine a band not being active on social media if you want to get your music. It just seems so necessary and so easy too. I mean, it's not that hard to be actively engaged on social media, but you
would think so. Like the number of bands that we get like promo material for, but they don't have any socials. It's kind of shocking, and it's sad to say it, but it definitely affects like from a reviewer's perspective and a website perspective. It does sort of make you prioritize them slightly less. So if you have 2 albums that you like equally and you want to review one or the other because you don't have time for both, if one band has like a social presence and you can actually tag them so they can see the review, you can make sure that they read it and share it, you're kind of going to lean that way if they're like on equal footing. So bands need to kind of realize that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I'm a fan first, and it's like, I hear about a band, I'm going to start checking stuff out, and I don't need to necessarily see that they've got 100,000 followers, but I want to be able to find stuff, and I'm going to go to a couple of basic social media spots just to check out their music,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Difficult, man. Why are you making it hard for me?
Yeah, it's like you shouldn't have to play detective to find out like where the band's from or who's in the band or like be able to see when they're putting albums out and stuff. But anyway, I've kept you here long enough. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking the time. And if you guys put out another album or couple albums, we'd love to have you back on to talk again.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. This was a lot of fun. I like having some time to pontificate on a bunch of different things, but really appreciate you guys. And we'd love to, I'd love to do it again. We'd love to do it again for sure, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you to everyone listening at home, and tune in next week for another guest.